My perfect life with the woman I loved was shattered by a single scream, revealing $700,000 in cash hidden in her bag. The rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack of my chef's knife was the only sound in the apartment, a steady beat in the quiet hum of a perfect Tuesday evening. I was dicing a cucumber for a Greek salad, the cool, fresh scent filling our small but sun-drenched kitchen. This was my happy place. After a long day coding at my desk, the simple tactile act of preparing a meal for the woman I loved was my meditation. Amelia would be home in an hour, and I wanted everything to be perfect. Our life was perfect, or so I thought. We'd been together for 3 years and had just moved into this place 2 months ago. It was our first real home together, a step up from the cramped apartment we'd shared since college. It had big windows that looked out over the city and a small balcony where Amelia's tomato plants were just starting to fruit. We were building a life, brick by perfect brick. Amelia was the architect of my happiness. She was a freelance graphic designer, brilliant and creative, with a smile that could disarm armies and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. She was everything. My mom, on the other hand, was my mom. She loved me, I knew that, but she viewed Amelia with a kind of polite, simmering suspicion. To her, Amelia was a little too polished, a little too charming. "Nobody's that perfect, Sonny," she'd say, patting my arm, her eyes scanning Amelia for a flaw, a crack in the facade. That's why she was here today. She'd insisted on coming over to help us finish unpacking, which was her code for inspecting every nook and cranny of our new life and rearranging our utensil drawer according to her own inscrutable system. An hour ago, she'd arrived with a casserole and a critical eye. After a brief tour, where she commented that our new gray sofa was a bit morose, she'd taken a pile of freshly washed laundry and headed for our bedroom. "I'll just put these away for you two lovebirds," she'd chirped, a little too brightly. "Lord knows where Amelia wants her delicates. The closet is already overflowing with her bags." It was a classic mom jab. Amelia had a thing for designer handbags. It was her one real splurge. She'd saved for months for the black leather tote she used for work, the one she called her adult bag. I thought it was a bit extravagant, but it made her happy. So, it made me happy. I finished with the cucumber and moved on to a ripe red tomato, the knife sliding through it with a satisfying whisper. I was humming to myself, thinking about the bottle of wine we'd opened, about the way Amelia's eyes crinkled when she laughed at my dumb jokes. The setting sun cast long, golden fingers across the hardwood floor. Life was good. It was simple, and it was good. That's when the scream ripped through the tranquility. It wasn't a scream of pain or terror. It was a strangled, high-pitched shriek of pure, unadulterated shock. My blood ran cold. The knife clattered from my hand, bouncing off the cutting board and onto the floor with a deafening clang. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden terrifying silence that followed. "Mom!" I yelled, my voice cracking. I wiped my wet hands on my jeans and sprinted from the kitchen, my mind flashing through a horrific slideshow of possibilities. Had she fallen? Seen a spider? Had a heart attack? I burst through the bedroom door, my breath catching in my throat. My mom was on her knees in the middle of the room, her face as white as a sheet. Her hands were trembling, her mouth hanging open, and on the bed in front of her was the source of the chaos. It was Amelia's black leather work tote, but it was open, and spilling from it, cascading onto our clean white duvet like a cursed waterfall, was money. I'm not talking about a few $100s. I'm talking about stacks, bricks of cash, held together with simple paper bands, mostly hundreds with some 50s mixed in. There were dozens of them, a mountain of currency that seemed to suck all the air out of the room. It didn't look real. It looked like movie prop money, like something you'd see in a heist film. But the smell was real. That dusty, unique scent of old paper and countless transactions. My mom finally found her voice. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and a strange, vindicated horror. Her voice was a hoarse, trembling whisper that echoed in the silent room. "Sonny," she breathed, pointing a shaking finger at the pile of money. "Sonny, I found $700K in her bag." My brain simply refused to process the words. $700,000. In Amelia's bag. It was impossible. A mistake. A joke. My Amelia, the woman who meticulously budgeted for groceries and celebrated finding a quarter on the sidewalk, could not possibly have this fortune hidden in her closet. It made no sense. My world tilted on its axis, the familiar walls of our bedroom seeming to warp and twist around me. That can't be right, I stammered, taking a hesitant step forward. I reached out and touched one of the stacks. The paper was crisp, real. I saw the face of Benjamin Franklin staring up at me, over and over and over again. A cold dread, heavy and suffocating, began to creep up my spine. Where did this come from? Why did she have it? What had she been hiding from me? 3 years of memories, of shared dreams and whispered secrets flashed before my eyes, all of them now cast in a sinister, unfamiliar light. My mom started babbling, a frantic stream of "I told yous" and "what are we going to do's," but her voice was just a buzz in the background. My focus was locked on the money, this impossible, life-shattering pile of cash on our bed. And in that moment of deafening confusion, as I stared at the evidence of a life I didn't know, a life that belonged to the woman I thought I knew best, I heard it. A faint, familiar sound from the hallway that made my heart stop cold. The cheerful jingle of keys, followed by the distinct click of the front door lock turning. Amelia was home. Panic, pure and primal, seized me. For a frozen second, my mom and I just stared at each other across the mountain of money, our faces masks of shared terror. The sound of Amelia's cheerful humming drifted in from the hallway as she dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. We had maybe 10 seconds. My brain, which had completely shut down moments before, rebooted with a single desperate command. "Hide it." "Help me," I hissed, lunging for the bed. I started scooping up the stacks of cash with both arms, the paper bands digging into my skin. They were dense, heavy, impossibly real. My mom, jolted out of her stupor, scrambled to help, her movements jerky and uncoordinated. Her hands trembled so badly she dropped a brick of hundreds, which landed with a soft, sickening thud on the floor. "Sonny, what are we doing?" she whispered frantically, her voice cracking. "We have to ask her. We have to call someone." "Just help me," I repeated, my voice a strangled plea. There was no time for questions, no time for anything but this frantic, insane cover-up. We were like 2 bank robbers in reverse, desperately trying to stuff our loot back into the vault. We shoved handfuls of money back into the black leather tote, but it was like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. The bag, which had looked so sleek and professional on Amelia's arm, was now a bulging, grotesque monster. The zipper wouldn't even come close to closing. "Honey, I'm home. Smells amazing in here. Are you in the bedroom?" Amelia's voice was closer now, just outside the door. My heart felt like it was going to explode. With a final, desperate shove, I crammed the last stack into the bag, the paper edges crumpling. I didn't even try for the zipper. I grabbed the overstuffed tote, the leather straining at the seams, and practically threw it into the back of her side of the closet, behind a row of hanging dresses. I slammed the closet door shut just as the bedroom door handle began to turn. I spun around, my back to the closet, my chest heaving. I wiped a sheen of cold sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand. My mom was standing rigidly by the dresser, clutching a pair of Amelia's socks like a holy relic, her face pale and her smile a terrifying, unnatural rictus. We must have looked insane. Amelia breezed in, a vision in her simple work dress, her face glowing from the walk home. Her smile was the same one I'd fallen in love with, but seeing it now sent a jolt of ice through my veins. "Hey, you two," she said, her smile faltering slightly as she took in the scene. "What's going on? You both look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a laugh that sounded more like a choke. No, nothing," I said, my voice an octave too high. "Mom was just, showing me her folding technique, the KonMari method, you know?" It was the stupidest lie I've ever told. My mom has never heard of Marie Kondo in her life. Her method of folding is to scrunch things into a ball. Amelia raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. She looked from my sweaty face to my mom's rigid posture. My mom, for her part, just nodded stiffly. "Yes, folding. Very efficient." A strange, unreadable expression passed over Amelia's face. For a terrifying millisecond, I was certain she knew. That she could smell the money, that she could see the sheer panic radiating off of us. But then she just shook her head, a small laugh escaping her lips. "You guys are weird." She walked over to me and wrapped her arms around my neck, pulling me in for a kiss. Her lips were soft and familiar, but all I could think about was the cold, hard cash hidden a few feet away. The kiss felt like a lie. Every touch, every shared smile over the past 3 years suddenly felt like a performance. Who was this woman I was holding? I pulled away more quickly than I should have. "Long day," I mumbled as an excuse. "I'm just gonna go check on the salad." "Okay, honey," she said, her eyes lingering on me for a moment. "I'm just gonna wash up." She turned and headed for the ensuite bathroom, and the moment the door clicked shut, my mom was on me. "Sonny, are you crazy?" she hissed, grabbing my arm. "We are not just going to pretend that didn't happen. That is drug money or mob money. She is in trouble, or she is the trouble." "Mom, stop," I whispered, pulling her towards the bedroom door. "Not now. We have to be calm. We have to think." But my mind was a chaotic blank. What was there to think? The evidence was undeniable, hidden in the dark behind a row of floral print dresses. "Think about what?" she insisted, her voice rising. "About how the girl you're about to propose to has a bigger savings account than a Swiss bank, and it's all in cash? I'm going to look in that bag again. There might be a clue." "No, don't touch it," I said, but it was too late. She was already yanking the closet door open, her earlier fear replaced by a kind of grim, maternal determination. She reached past the dresses and pulled the grotesquely swollen tote bag back out onto the bed. The top was still gaping open, revealing the edges of the banded stacks. "Mom, she's going to come out any second," I pleaded. "It'll just take a second," she muttered, plunging her hand deep into the bag, past the stacks of cash. "There has to be something that explains this. A letter. A ransom note." Her hand stopped moving. Her eyes went wide. Slowly, she pulled her hand back out of the bag. Clutched between her thumb and forefinger was not a note, but something small and metallic. It was a key, an old-fashioned skeleton-style key, the kind you'd see for a safety deposit box or an old chest. Attached to it by a thin metal ring was a worn, rectangular, leather tag. My mom held it up, her hand trembling again. Stamped into the leather was an address, one I didn't recognize, in an industrial part of town we never went to. And below the address, there was one other word, a word that made the blood in my veins turn to ice. Escape. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and sinister. Escape. It wasn't a label, it was a statement of intent. My mom held the key out on her palm like a holy relic, her eyes wide with a terrifying mixture of horror and vindication. All her vague suspicions about Amelia, all her little "nobody's that perfect" comments, had just been validated in the most spectacular way imaginable. This key, this money, it was an escape plan. But what, or who, was Amelia planning to escape from? Was she escaping to something, or was she planning to escape from me? The sound of the shower starting in the bathroom jolted us back to reality. We had a few minutes. "Put it back," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Put it all back exactly as you found it." My mind was racing, trying to stitch together a narrative that made sense. Maybe it was an inheritance. Maybe she was holding it for a friend. But every flimsy explanation disintegrated against the stark reality of the word stamped on that tag. You don't label an inheritance escape. My mom, for once, did as I asked without argument. She dropped the key back into the tote, and together we shoved the bulging bag back into the depths of the closet, burying it behind Amelia's winter coats. The closet door clicked shut, sealing the secret away. But it was too late. The knowledge of what was in there was a poison that had already seeped into the room, into the very foundation of our home. Dinner was a masterclass in tension. I moved on autopilot, tossing the salad, plating the chicken I'd grilled earlier, pouring 3 glasses of wine with a hand that shook so badly I sloshed some on the counter. Every movement felt rehearsed, every word a lie. Amelia came out of the bedroom looking refreshed, wearing one of my old t-shirts and a pair of leggings, the picture of domestic bliss. She seemed oblivious, chatting about a difficult client and a funny email she'd gotten. Her laughter, the sound I usually loved more than anything, now grated on my nerves, each cheerful note a potential deception. My mom was even worse. She sat ramrod straight at our small dining table, her fork hovering over her salad, as if it might be poisoned. She answered Amelia's questions in monosyllables, her eyes darting from Amelia's smiling face to my pale one. The air was so thick with unspoken accusations, you could have sliced it with my chef's knife. "Everything okay, Eleanor?" Amelia finally asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You're awfully quiet tonight." My mom plastered on a smile that looked painful. "Just tired, dear. A long day. All that folding." I jumped in, desperate to change the subject. "So, honey, how was your presentation today? You were worried about the new client." "Oh, it was amazing," she said, her whole face lighting up. "They loved the mock-ups. I think we're going to land the contract. It's huge, Sonny. It could be a real game changer for me." She beamed, raising her wine glass. "To new beginnings." My mom and I exchanged a fleeting, panicked look over the rims of our glasses. New beginnings. The phrase landed like a stone in my gut. Was this what the money was for? A new beginning? One that didn't include me? I felt a wave of nausea. I'd been saving for months to buy her an engagement ring. I had it picked out. I'd been planning to propose on our anniversary trip to the coast next month. Now, that entire future felt like a fantasy. A story I'd been telling myself while the lead actress was secretly preparing for a completely different movie. After what felt like an eternity, dinner was over. My mom made her excuses, a flimsy story about an early morning appointment, and practically fled the apartment. At the door, she grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Don't be a fool, Sonny," she whispered, her eyes boring into mine. "Don't just let this go. You need to find out what that key opens." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with Amelia and the $700,000 elephant in the room. The silence that descended was heavy, suffocating. We cleaned the kitchen together, our usual comfortable routine now stilted and awkward. I found myself watching her every move, searching for a clue, a crack in the facade. The way she wiped the counter, the way she tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, were these the actions of a woman in love, or the calculated movements of a stranger? Later, as we were getting ready for bed, the tension finally snapped. I was brushing my teeth, staring at my own hollow-eyed reflection in the mirror, when she came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "What's wrong, Sonny?" she murmured, resting her chin on my shoulder. "You've been a million miles away all evening. Did something happen with your mom?" This was it, the moment of truth. My heart hammered. I could confront her. I could demand to know about the money, the key, the word escape. I could blow our entire world apart right here, right now, in the sterile silence of our bathroom. But when I looked at her reflection in the mirror, at her soft, concerned eyes, the words caught in my throat. I wasn't ready. I was a coward. I needed proof. I needed to know what I was dealing with before I detonated our lives. "No, nothing," I lied, forcing a weak smile. "Just stressed from work. A big project deadline is looming." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go, kissing my shoulder. "Well, try to get some sleep. Everything looks better in the morning." She turned and padded back into the bedroom. But I knew sleep was impossible. My mind was a whirlwind of suspicion and fear. I finished in the bathroom and crept into the bedroom. Amelia was already in bed, her back to me, her breathing slow and even. Was she really asleep, or was she pretending? I slid under the covers, the sheets feeling cold and alien. I lay there for what felt like hours, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. The address on the tag, it was my only lead. Around 2 a.m., when I was certain she was deep in sleep, I carefully slipped out of bed. The floorboards creaked under my bare feet, each sound amplified in the dead of night. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure it would wake her. Holding my breath, I crept to the closet. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I pulled the door open with agonizing slowness, wincing at the soft click of the latch. I reached past her clothes, my fingers brushing against silk and wool until they found the familiar, strained leather of the tote. I pulled it out into the faint moonlight filtering through the window. It felt even heavier now, weighted down with secrets. I didn't dare turn on a light. Fumbling in the darkness, I plunged my hand inside, the crisp edges of the money stack scratching my skin. My fingers closed around the small, cold shape of the key. I pulled it out, along with her wallet, which had been tucked in a side pocket. I needed a plan. I needed to know what that key was for. I opened her wallet, my hands shaking, hoping for Something. A receipt, a business card, anything that might lead me to that address. And that's when I saw it. Tucked behind her driver's license was a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a receipt, it was a plane ticket. A one-way ticket to Buenos Aires, Argentina, for a flight that departed in 2 days, and it was booked for only one passenger, Buenos Aires. The name of the city seemed to mock me from the flimsy paper in my hand. It was so specific, so final. A one-way ticket, in 2 days, for one person. The carefully constructed world I had built with Amelia shattered into a million pieces. This wasn't a contingency plan. This was an exit strategy, meticulously planned and imminent. The money, the key, the ticket, it was all part of a life I had no idea she was living, a future she was building that had no room for me in it. My breath came in ragged, silent gasps. I felt a cold, hollow ache spread through my chest, a grief so profound it was almost physical. The woman sleeping peacefully a few feet away, the woman I was planning to marry, was a complete stranger, a liar, a brilliant actress who had played the part of my loving girlfriend for 3 years. Every "I love you," every shared laugh, every plan we'd made for the future was a lie. My first instinct was to storm back to the bed, to flick on the lights and shove the ticket in her face, to scream until my throat was raw. I wanted to see her face when the mask finally dropped. But what would that accomplish? She would lie. She would spin some elaborate story, and a part of me, the weak, pathetic part that still loved her, would want to believe it. No, I couldn't confront her like this. Not yet. My mom's words echoed in my head. You need to find out what that key opens. With trembling fingers, I slid the plane ticket back behind her license and put the wallet back in the bag. I took a picture of the key and the leather tag with my phone, the click of the shutter sounding like a gunshot in the silent room. Then I pushed the heavy tote back into its hiding place and crept back to bed. Lying there, next to her warm, sleeping body, was a special kind of torture. I felt utterly alone, a ghost in my own life. The next morning, I woke up before she did, the decision already made. I called in sick to work, my voice a strained, unconvincing croak. Amelia stirred as I hung up. "You okay, honey?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. "Just a stomach bug," I lied, the words tasting like ash. "Think I'll stay home and rest today." "Oh, poor baby," she said, rolling over to kiss my forehead. Her touch felt like a brand. "Do you need anything? I can stay home with you." The offer was so casually loving, so completely at odds with the one-way ticket in her wallet that it made me feel dizzy. No, you've got that big contract to work on. I'll be fine. Just sleep and fluids." "Okay. Call me if you need anything." She got up and started her morning routine, humming that same cheerful tune from the day before. I watched her, this beautiful, enigmatic stranger, moving through our apartment, and felt a chilling detachment. I was an observer now, a detective in my own home, gathering evidence for a crime I hadn't yet been able to name. As soon as I heard the front door close behind her, I was in motion. I pulled up the photo on my phone and typed the address from the leather tag into my GPS. It was a self-storage facility called Fortress Storage in the industrial district down by the docks, a gritty, forgotten part of the city. The name itself sent a shiver down my spine. The drive felt surreal. The sun was shining, people were heading to work, and the world was moving on as normal, completely unaware that mine had imploded. Fortress Storage was a grim, sprawling complex of corrugated steel and barbed wire. It looked less like a place to store your old furniture and more like a place to make someone disappear. I parked across the street, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. What was I doing? What if this was something dangerous? My mom's words about mob money didn't seem so hysterical anymore, but I had to know. The not knowing was eating me alive. I took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked through the gate. The place was a maze of identical orange doors and numbered units. Using the address from the tag, I found the unit, C47. It was in a dark, quiet corner of the complex. I stood before the heavy roll-up door, the skeleton key feeling cold and heavy in my sweaty palm. This was it. The answer to everything was behind this door. My hand was shaking so badly, it took me 3 tries to get the key into the old, rusted lock. It turned with a loud, grating clunk. For a moment, I just stood there, my hand on the handle, my courage failing me. What if I didn't want to know? What if I could just walk away, go home, and pretend the last 24 hours never happened? But I knew that was impossible. The truth was a splinter in my mind, and it had to be removed. I gripped the cold metal handle with both hands and heaved. The door screeched in protest as it rolled upwards, revealing the dark, musty interior of the storage unit. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling, which I switched on with a pull of a dusty chain. The weak yellow light flickered to life, illuminating the contents. It wasn't what I expected. There were no crates of weapons, no counterfeit plates, no signs of an illicit criminal enterprise. Instead, it looked ordinary. There were a few cardboard boxes stacked against one wall, a rolled-up rug and an old wooden dresser. It looked like the remnants of a previous life, the kind of stuff you hang onto after a bad breakup. Disappointment warred with relief. Maybe I had it all wrong. Maybe there was a simple, innocent explanation after all. I opened the top drawer of the dresser. It was full of old photographs, loose and jumbled. I picked one up. It showed a much younger Amelia, maybe 16 or 17, standing on a porch with an older man and woman who must have been her parents. They were all smiling, but there was a strained quality to it, a shadow in their eyes. I had never seen a picture of Amelia's parents. She always told me they'd passed away in a car accident when she was in college, and that it was too painful for her to talk about or keep photos. Another lie. I started sifting through the boxes. One was filled with books, another with old college textbooks. The last box, however, was heavier. I sliced through the packing tape with my car key and folded back the flaps. Inside, nestled among layers of yellowing newspaper, were dozens of passports. Not just 2 or 3, dozens. All with Amelia's picture, but each with a different name. Catherine Muller from Germany, Sophie Dubois from France, Chloe Smith from Canada. Each passport was paired with a matching driver's license, a birth certificate, and a social security card. They were all pristine, flawless forgeries. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just an escape plan. This was the work of a professional, a ghost. Underneath the pile of fake identities, there was a single thick manila envelope. My name, Sonny, was written on the front in Amelia's elegant cursive. My heart stopped. It was a letter. For me. It was like she knew, somehow, that I would eventually find this place. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside were several documents, but on top was a handwritten letter. "My dearest Sonny," it began. "If you are reading this, it means that something has gone terribly wrong. It means they have found me, and I am so sorry to have put you in danger." My mind reeled. They? Danger? Before I could read another word, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. There was no text, just a single, horrifying image. It was a photo of Amelia. She was sitting at her usual table at the coffee shop near her office, where she always went for lunch. She was smiling, looking down at her laptop. But the photo wasn't taken from inside the coffee shop. It was taken from across the street through a telephoto lens. Someone was watching her. Right now. My phone buzzed again. The same number. This time, there was a message. 7 simple, terrifying words that made the world drop out from under me. "We know you're in the storage unit." My blood turned to ice. A primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of confusion. "We know you're in the storage unit." They weren't just watching Amelia, they were watching me. The bare bulb above my head suddenly felt like a spotlight in a prison yard. I was trapped. My gaze darted to the single entrance, the open roll-up door, a gaping mouth, leading to an unknown threat. Every shadow in the sprawling complex seemed to shift and lengthen, hiding unseen eyes. I shoved the letter and the envelope of documents into my jacket pocket, my hands fumbling, useless. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get in my car and drive as fast as I could, but my feet felt bolted to the concrete floor. The text message was a leash, a clear and brutal signal that they controlled the situation. If I ran, what would happen to Amelia, sitting obliviously in that coffee shop? The telephoto shot was a threat, a promise. "We have her in our sights." My phone buzzed a third time. My heart leaped into my throat. "Stay where you are. A car is coming for you. Do not contact the police. Do not contact Amelia. If you do, she dies." The world narrowed to the dusty, claustrophobic confines of Unit C-47. The passports, the money, the one-way ticket, it wasn't about her escaping me. It was about her escaping them. And I had just walked straight into the trap she'd spent years trying to avoid. The shame and anger I'd felt curdled into a new, terrifying emotion: guilt. My snooping, my righteous indignation had led them right to her. I had no choice. I stood in the center of the unit, bathed in the sickly yellow light, and waited. 5 minutes later, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows rolled silently down the aisle and stopped in front of my unit. A man in a tailored suit, built like a refrigerator, got out of the passenger side. He didn't speak. He just gestured with his head for me to get in the back. I complied, my body moving on its own accord, my mind a maelstrom of panic. The car smelled of leather and quiet menace. As we drove, I finally pulled out the letter from my pocket and read it, the words blurring through my fear. Her real name wasn't Amelia. It was Anya Petrova. Her father had been a financial analyst for a powerful and deeply corrupt oligarch back in Russia. He had discovered his boss was funneling billions out of the country, and like a good man, he decided to become a whistleblower. But he was caught. Before they came for him, he managed to give Anya, then a 19-year-old girl, a single hard drive containing all the evidence and all the liquid cash he could gather. He told her to run, to disappear, and to never stop running. Her parents weren't killed in a car crash. They were executed. The money in the bag, the $700,000, was what was left of her father's desperate last act to save her. The storage unit was her emergency bunker. The passports were her lifeline, a new identity for every time they got too close. And I, Sonny, was the one beautiful, dangerous mistake she had allowed herself to make. She had fallen in love. She had stayed in one place for too long. She'd started to believe, foolishly, that she could have a normal life. The letter ended with a plea. "If they have me," she wrote, "take the hard drive from the envelope and get it to the journalist whose name is inside. It is the only thing that will ever make me free. Don't try to be a hero. Please, Sonny, just live. I love you." The car stopped in the underground garage of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. I was led to a private elevator, then into a penthouse suite that screamed obscene wealth. And there, sitting in a leather armchair with a glass of whiskey in his hand, was a man whose face I recognized from news articles about international finance. Alexei Volkov, the oligarch. He was older, with cold, reptilian eyes. Amelia Anya was standing by the window, her arms wrapped around herself, her face pale and devoid of all emotion. She wouldn't look at me. "Mr. Miller," Volkov said, his voice a low, accented purr, "so glad you could join us. You have caused us a great deal of trouble." "What do you want?" I asked, my own voice surprisingly steady. "What my associate's father stole from me, of course," he said, gesturing with his glass towards Anya. "A hard drive. I believe she entrusted its location to you in that rather dramatic letter you're clutching." His eyes flicked to my jacket pocket. I looked at Anya, pleading with my eyes for some kind of sign. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. "Don't give it to him." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. Volkov sighed, a theatrical display of disappointment. "I had hoped you would be more reasonable." He nodded to the mountain of a man beside me. A fist slammed into my gut, and I doubled over, the air exploding from my lungs. "Stop it!" Anya screamed, her composure finally breaking. "Leave him alone. He doesn't have it. It's in a safe deposit box. I'm the only one with the key." It was a bluff, and a brilliant one. She was buying us time. Volkov studied her for a long moment, then smiled. It was not a pleasant sight. "Very well. You and I will take a trip to the bank. Mr. Miller will remain here with my colleague. Should you try anything clever, I'm sure you can imagine the consequences." As they were about to leave, Anya finally looked at me, her eyes filled with a universe of terror and apology. "I'm so sorry, Sonny," she whispered. And in that moment, I saw the woman I loved, not the ghost, not the spy, but the terrified girl who had been running her whole life. As soon as they were gone, an idea, born of sheer desperation, sparked in my mind. The documents in the envelope. The hard drive wasn't the only thing in there. I remembered the name of a journalist. I also remembered seeing a thick stack of bearer bonds, anonymous and untraceable, each worth $100,000. Her father's final insurance policy. "Your boss," I said to the guard, my voice raspy as I pushed myself up from the floor. "He's a smart businessman, right? He values a good deal." The guard just stared at me blankly. "Tell him I have a counter offer," I said, pulling the bonds from the envelope. "He can have the drive, the evidence that could put him away for life, or he can have these. $10 million in untraceable bonds. But he can't have both. He lets Anya go, gives her a new, clean identity he provides himself, guarantees her safety, and he never sees either of us again. In return, I burn the drive, and he gets richer." I spent the next hour in agonizing silence, waiting. The guard made a phone call, speaking in hushed, rapid Russian. Finally, he got a call back. He listened, grunted a reply, and hung up. He looked at me. He agrees. 2 hours later, Anya and I were in the back of the black sedan, this time heading for the private airport. The bonds were gone. In my hand was a burner phone with a single number in it, the journalist. If Volkov betrayed us, the evidence would be released, mutually assured destruction. In Anya's bag was a new Canadian passport, a plane ticket, and a credit card, all provided by Volkov, his twisted version of a severance package. We stood on the tarmac beside a small jet. There were no goodbyes, no tearful farewells. The life we'd built was a dream, and it was over. "Will you be safe?" I asked, my voice thick. "He gets what he wants," she said, her voice hollow. "Money. The drive is worthless to me now. My father is avenged. He's free. That's all that matters." She looked at me, her eyes glistening. "The woman you fell in love with, Sonny, she was real. That part was never a lie." She squeezed my hand one last time, then turned and walked up the steps into the jet without looking back. I watched until the plane was just a speck in the blue sky, taking my heart with it. I went home to our apartment, which was now just an apartment. I called my mom and told her Amelia was gone, that we'd broken up. I didn't tell her why. Some stories are too heavy to share. The next day, I took the hard drive to a public barbecue pit in the park and burned it until it was nothing but a melted lump of plastic. I watched the smoke curl into the sky, a final gray tribute to Anya Petrova and the life we almost had. It was over. She was free. And in a way, so was I. The life I'd thought was perfect had been a beautiful illusion. Now all I had was the truth, and a quiet, empty apartment that smelled faintly of cucumbers, and a love that had been real, even if her name wasn't.